All right. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the tribal focused public meeting on the request for information on the National Flood Insurance Program's Community Rating Systems redesign effort. My name is Jay LaPlante. I'm a Blackfeet and Cree from Montana. I'm currently the National Tribal Affairs Advisor with FEMA's Office of External Affairs. I want to thank you for joining today's public meeting. We hold tribal focused meetings so that tribal nations' voices are heard and that they have a chance to impact policies and programs affecting their communities. Today, we are covering some important information about the NFIP community rating system, and your input is extremely valuable. Later in the meeting, there will be time and space to provide verbal comments, and of course, you are always welcome to provide written comments too. For now, I'd like to turn things over to Mary Jo Mullen, who will get us started.
Thank you, Jay. Hello and welcome to the third and final public meeting on the Request for Information, or RFI, on the National Flood Insurance Program's Community Rating System redesign effort. My name is Mary Jo Mullen, and I am providing some technical housekeeping information and a preview of the agenda for today's session. We are hosting this public meeting to gather input on the RFI published in the Federal Register on July 11th, 2024. The RFI seeks information on how FEMA can better serve communities through the National Flood Insurance Program's Community Rating System, also known as the CRS program. Specifically, the RFI seeks further input on suggested alternative program features and approaches for a redesigned CRS program based upon public input from the August 23rd, 2021 request for information on the National Flood Insurance Program's Community Rating System, published in the Federal Register. Please note that this public meeting is being recorded and a transcript will become part of the public record. Continued participation in this public meeting constitutes your consent that your name may appear on the official transcript for the record. If you are a member of the media, nothing said on this call is attributable to FEMA. Please direct your request to the FEMA press office at fema-news-desk@fema.dhs.gov. The FEMA news team will help you. I'd like to provide a brief orientation to some of the controls and functions available for today's webinar. On the bottom of your screen, you will find the meeting controls. This event includes closed captioning for those who may need it. You can turn on the captioning by clicking on the Show Captions or CC icon and making any adjustments you need. We will also post a link in the chat to view the caption in a browser window if you prefer. American Sign Language interpretation is also available and can be accessed by clicking Interpretation, the globe icon, from your webinar controls and then clicking American Sign Language. Note that language interpretation is only available if you join the meeting from a computer. It is not available for those joining by phone. Live spoken interpretation is also available in Spanish and can be accessed by clicking Interpretation, again the globe icon, from your webinar controls and then clicking Spanish. To hear only the audio for Spanish, click Mute Original Audio. Again, language interpretation is only available if you join the meeting from a computer and is not available for those joining by phone. The purpose of this meeting is to seek general feedback on FEMA's programs. Individuals cannot apply for assistance or receive information regarding a pending assistance request as a part of this meeting. If you are seeking assistance from FEMA, please call the FEMA helpline at 1-800-621-3362 or TTY 800-462-7585 to apply and receive information on a pending request. We ask that you please use the question and answer window to reach out for help with technical difficulties. Our hosts will respond to technical questions through the Q&A window. Please note that submissions through the Q&A window will become part of the public record. Please keep an eye on the chat window for any messages broadcast to all participants. And by default, participants are disabled from speaking during the presentation portion of the public meeting. We ask that those registered to speak ensure that their Zoom username matches the first and last name used for registration. For those who registered to provide verbal comments during today's session, please note that users must join today's webinar with the Zoom desktop app or mobile app to provide verbal comments. Due to technical limitations, you will not be able to provide verbal comments if you join the webinar by phone audio only. Toward the end of the public meeting, and as time allows, there will be an open comment period for interested individuals to provide additional verbal comments. We are providing a link in the chat box to the NFIP CRS website, which has materials for your reference about the CRS program. Let's take a moment to review today's agenda. First, we will hear opening remarks from FEMA Region 10's Floodplain Management and Insurance Branch Chief. After that, we'll provide an overview of the CRS program presented by FEMA's Floodplain Management Division. And from there, we'll provide an overview of the programmatic review and improvement effort for the CRS program called CRS Redesign. We will conclude the presentation by reviewing the questions FEMA is seeking answers to about the suggested alternative program features. These questions are listed on the Federal Register notification, Docket ID FEMA-2024-0022. And we encourage you to read them in the Federal Register notice as you scroll down to the bottom of the notification on the page. We are posting the link to the page in the chat so you can access this information before we start the verbal commenting portion of the meeting. Once the introduction information has been provided on the current CRS program and the CRS redesign effort, we'll explain the instructions for providing your written comments through the Federal Register RFI during this open comment period. Comments can be submitted until September 9th, 2024. The majority of the remaining time on today's public meeting is reserved for verbal comments for the record on CRS Redesign RFI. We will review all the details about how to provide verbal comments during this meeting before we open the floor for verbal comments. We'll conclude then with a few closing remarks. Today's presenters include Jay LaPlante, FEMA Office of External Affairs, the National Tribal Affairs Advisor, John Graves, FEMA Region 10 Floodplain Management and Insurance Branch Chief, and Shopal Mullick, FEMA Floodplain Management Division, CRS Redesign Program Manager. And now I'm going to hand things over to our first speaker, John Graves, for opening remarks.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the public meeting on the Request for Information, or RFI, on the National Flood Insurance Program's Community Ratings System redesign effort. We abbreviate these as NFIP and CRS. As Mary Jo mentioned, FEMA is currently obtaining feedback on suggested program alternatives to the Community Rating System, or the CRS, through a request for information published in July. I want to provide you with a brief background on the context of the National Flood Insurance Program and the CRS. Next slide. Oh, sorry. The NFIP is managed by FEMA and provides federally backed flood insurance to property owners entering in business, and businesses. Today, approximately 22,600 communities across the apologies for that. Today, approximately 22,600 communities across the country participate in the NFIP. In order for these communities to participate in the NFIP, FEMA requires them to adopt and enforce minimum floodplain management standards. The best idea behind CRS is to incentivize communities to adopt measures that reduce the risk of flood damage beyond the minimum requirements of the NFIP through premium credits. In the last 5 years, FEMA has engaged in various strategic initiatives, including CRS redesign, and has been coordinating these transformation efforts to build an enduring NFIP. An enduring NFIP depends on the federal leadership empowering state and local officials to take steps to mitigate their flood risk, with collaboration as a focal point. This partnership is a two-part equation encompassing the thought encompassing the thought leadership FEMA provides and the work communities and policyholders are doing to increase the nation's resilience to flooding. The CRS is a prime example of how communities are working to increase flood mitigation practices nationwide. Through the CRS Redesign Initiative, FEMA is reviewing opportunities to further promote enhanced resilience efforts throughout the CRS program. Today's meeting is an opportunity to provide your comments on the suggested program alternatives to the CRS program. These public meetings were designed to allow our stakeholders and the general public to learn more about this effort and to allow the opportunity to provide input. I want to thank you for taking the time to participate in this process and making the CRS program sustainable and beneficial for many years to come. Next, I'm going to provide an overview of the Community Rating System program. Okay. The CRS program was designed to empower and incentivize communities to take actions that go above and beyond the minimum floodplain management standards of the NFIP and to reward and incentivize those actions. The program's original intent was to reduce and avoid flood damage to insurable property, strengthen and support the insurance aspects of the National Flood Insurance Program, and foster comprehensive floodplain management. The program was premised on the belief that communities are best positioned to develop the most effective approaches to local flood problems. Authorized by Congress in 1994, the CRS program offers many benefits to participating communities. CRS discounts currently range from 5% to 45% and are calculated based on a community's credit points obtained through various flood risk management activities. Other benefits include increased opportunities for property owners to understand their flood risk, reduced damage to property, technical assistance to some community activities, and incentives to maintain and improve flood programs over time. The CRS program offers credits to communities based on implementing approved floodplain management activities. These activities are organized into 4 categories that provide a sense of the range of what's possible to earn credit for under CRS today. Public information, mapping and regulations, flood damage reduction, and warning and response. To give you a better understanding of the scale of the current CRS program, as of April 2024, there are approximately 1,500 communities participating in the CRS across the US. And just for reference, there's 1 tribal nation that participates in the CRS program. There are over 3.5 million policyholders in the CRS communities, accounting for more than 75% of all NFIP insurance policies. Next, I'm going to hand it over to Shilpa Mullik, the CRS Redesign Program Manager, to provide an overview of the CRS redesign effort and further information on how you can provide input on the suggested program alternatives. Shilpa?
Thank you, John. Can you hear me, Jesse?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Hello, and thank you for joining the public meeting for the National Flood Insurance Program's CRS Redesign Request for Information. My name is Shilpa Mullik, and I'm the Program Manager for the CRS Redesign effort. Today, I'll be providing you with a brief overview of the CRS Redesign effort. First, I'll speak a little bit about the reason we're pursuing the CRS Redesign effort at this time. So CRS Redesign is a multi-year effort which was intended to take a comprehensive look at the CRS program, exploring both the incremental improvements and bold shifts in approach. This was launched in 2022, and the project aims to revamp the CRS programmatic framework, potentially including revisions to the rating system scoring and operational elements. CRS Redesign is FEMA's way of addressing stakeholders' feedback on the current program. The redesign effort is a way for the public to have input on this future of a prominent flood risk reduction and money-saving program. In summary, we've heard your feedback and are once again speaking to our partners and stakeholders to determine the best path forward for the future of the CRS program. As mentioned earlier, The CRS redesign effort is intended to take a comprehensive look at the CRS program, exploring both incremental improvements and bold shifts in approach. CRS redesign is in part of response to the overwhelming volume of feedback received from stakeholders in the last few years, including from the request of information in 2021. CRS has always been a highly valued program with a solid reputation with communities and stakeholders. So we want to be mindful of these positive experiences and carefully consider any impacts that would result from a total overhaul of the program. CRS redesign also reflects ongoing transformations in FEMA and the NFIP aimed at increasing equity and climate resilience. There have been many important advances since the program's inception over 30 years. There has been also continuous learning about flooding and flood risk reduction techniques. We understand more today about risk and the techniques to manage risk, and the technology available to us has dramatically improved in the last 30 years. We also know more about multi-frequency analysis, pluvial flooding, climate change, and the extent of flood risk outside of the special flood hazard area, or SFHA. Another important factor that we're considering during the CRS design process is a report from the Government Accountability Office, or GAO, which was published in July 2023. GAO presented several findings about the CRS program as it operates. First, to adjust CRS by calculating a community's rating based only on community activities that reduce flood risk, and by incorporating discounts into the full risk premium based on the actuarial evaluation of risk reduction. And second, to evaluate other means for incentivizing desirable community activities that cannot be actuarially justified, but are currently a basis for discounts in CRS. Both of these recommendations are being considered through this CRS design effort. That said, we've heard from internal and external stakeholders about opportunities to improve an occasional and thoughtful criticism. So all of these factors together paint the picture of why FEMA must undertake the CRS redesign to remain consistent with other change efforts and stakeholder feedback. Next, I'd like to take a moment to talk about where we are in the overall life cycle of the project, what we've accomplished so far, and what we're focused on for this year. So we've said it already, and we'll say it again. CRS redesign is a multi-year effort. We're doing this because taking a deliberate and intentional analytical approach ensures that the future design and features of CRS are founded on rigorous, data-driven, and evidence-based decision-making. The evaluation process we're undertaking is the second phase of the larger CRS design journey, and we're executing an intentional process that centers around a deliberate and analytical approach to program design. As we look ahead, FEMA will use the evaluation findings to initially select a program design in FY25 for further consideration, with the goal of focusing on implementation planning in 2026. No changes will be made to the CRS program at least until 2026. It's important to note that with whatever program design is chosen, FEMA is dedicated to providing ample time for communities to prepare for the implementation of the redesigned program. Once the multi-year redesign process concludes and the new program is finalized, FEMA will allow a minimum period of 18 months for communities to make any necessary adjustments and successfully implement the program. This extended timeline offers communities the opportunity to plan, adapt, and ensure a smooth transition to the revamped CRS, promoting a more efficient and effective floodplain management approach. One of the first milestones completed in the CRS design process was establishing goals for the future program. These goals were developed based on stakeholder feedback about the current CRS program with input from our FEMA experts and NFIP executives. So the following goals have been established for the redesigned CRS program. Goal 1 is to incentivize communities to take measurable actions and make sustained progress that reduce current and future flood risk. Goal 2 is embed equity as a foundation of the CRS program. Goal 3 is to incentivize communities to promote property owners to purchase flood insurance to reduce their financial risk due to flood. And goal 4 is delivering a participant-centered, and modernized program. So now that I've centered you around the progress we've made in the CRS redesign effort and the focus of our current work, I'd like to transition to the engagement portion of today's presentation. Based on our previous stakeholder feedback from the 2021 RFI, FEMA is considering suggested alternatives for the CRS program to be designed. Stakeholder engagement questions in the RFI consider the following suggested features: automatic enrollment, premium surcharges, risk-based premiums and CRS discounts, exchanging individual benefits for community benefits, enhanced technical assistance, simplification of CRS, and multi-jurisdiction CRS participation. Next, we're going to spend a few minutes today talking through how we're engaging the public on this effort and how you can participate. We've so far provided multiple opportunities for stakeholders and the public to provide inputs throughout the CRS redesign initiative. FEMA has issued this request for information to receive input from the public on transforming the community rating system under the NFIP to better align with the current understanding of flood risk and flood risk reduction approaches, and to incentivize communities to not only manage, but also lower their flood risk through the floodplain management initiatives and to support the sound financial framework of the NFIP. You may submit written comments identified by Docket ID FEMA-2024-0022-0001 through the federal e-rulemaking portal at www.regulations.gov. All submissions must include the agency name and docket ID for this notice. For access to the docket to read background documents or comments received, go to http://www.regulations.gov and search for the docket ID. Written comments are requested on or before September 9th, 2024. For any comments, we ask you to identify the number of the specific questions or questions to which you are responding. Next, I'm going to review and clarify the list of questions FEMA is seeking your feedback on during today's public meeting. As mentioned earlier, these questions are listed in the Federal Register notice and can be viewed as you scroll down the page. If you need additional clarifications on these questions, as I read them, please add them to the Q&A and I'll try to address them. With that, I'm going to start with question 1. I think the link to the RFI has been posted in the chat if you want to download these. So question 1 is, should FEMA provide each community with the report highlighting potential CRS program credits, often referred to as points or credits, that the community could earn to mitigate risk and reduce insurance premiums, explaining strategies on how to receive more points and flagging NFIP minimum floodplain management standard compliance issues? Why or why not? This again is based on the suggestions that were made by stakeholders. They thought a report would be helpful, which identifies any violations there or any opportunities for the community to earn points or credits for the activities that they might already be implementing. Question 2, should FEMA auto-enroll all NFIP participating communities into the CRS program to give the community CRS credit for activities that they already undertake that exceed NFIP minimum floodplain management standards? Example, community has an open space preservation program to reduce flooding. Auto-enrollment means all communities would automatically participate in CRS by virtue of participating in the NFIP. So this is a suggestion that was made by stakeholders to reduce the barriers to entry into the program. We heard from many stakeholders, the program is complex, it's burdensome, and there's a lot of paperwork required to enter into the program, to apply for participating in the CRS program. So this was suggested by the stakeholders that FEMA should assess all over 22,600 plus communities that are participating in the NFIP to see if they are meeting just the minimum floodplain management standards, per 44 CFR 60.3, or they are implementing standards that are higher than the minimum standards and could qualify for CRS discounts. So, and based on that, they would be, once FEMA has done the assessment, then these communities, if they qualify for higher class in CRS, they would be automatically enrolled. If they just meet the minimum standards, they would remain at class 10. And initially what would happen if FEMA were to implement this option, then initially everyone would come in at class 10, except for the communities that are already in CRS. They would retain their classifications. And then after we have assessed these communities, then we would change their rating to higher class if they qualify, if they're implementing higher standards. If they're just meeting the minimum standards, then they would remain at class 10. Question 3, would there be any advantage if FEMA were to assess an escalating surcharge on NFIP policy premiums for NFIP participating communities that are not in compliance with the NFIP minimum floodplain management standards? This would be in addition to the NFIP probation policy surcharge that is in 44 CFR 59.4B. So as you're aware, we do struggle with compliance issues in both NFIP communities as well as in CRS communities. So some of the stakeholders suggested that if FEMA were to assess all communities to see if they meet minimum standards, or if they meet the higher standards, and if they auto enroll them, then FEMA would be able to uncover any compliance issues that are there in communities. And if FEMA discovers that there are compliance issues within a community and the community is not compliant with the minimum floodplain management standards, then there should be negative rating to the communities, starting with class 11, negative class 11, going up to negative class 15, with a surcharge assessed of 10% to all policyholders within a non-compliant community, starting with the 10% surcharge at class 11. Then the community would be given a certain amount of time, approximately 18 months, to resolve the compliance issues. If not, then they would be advanced to negative class 12 with a 20% surcharge on all policies, so on up to a 50% surcharge for negative class 15. Now, this does not get rid of the probation process. Eventually, these communities would go through probation and then suspension, but this is in the interim, so that the communities would start becoming compliant and resolving compliance issues. In addition to that, the suggestion is that if in CRS community, FEMA discovers that they have compliance issues, then the retrograde process isn't going away, but in the interim, the communities, CRS communities that are non-compliant, they would get a surcharge along with the discount. And eventually the communities would be retrograded and maybe even go through probation and suspension. So these are again the suggestions made by stakeholders. We have not made any decision on any of the alternatives that have been suggested by our stakeholders. Questions number 4. What are the advantages and or disadvantages of providing technical assistance to communities to support CRS participation? Would communities take advantage of technical assistance? And if so, what type of technical assistance would be most helpful? Examples of suggested technical assistance include assisting communities with the preparation of required CRS documents, CRS project management, CRS program support, and preparation of repetitive loss analysis. This again is a suggestion made by stakeholders to reduce the barriers to entry and to maintain participation. So one of the goals I mentioned was equity. So equity is to really how we can reduce the barriers for disadvantaged communities to participate in the program and maintain participation. So the suggestion was that FEMA should be providing technical assistance, and that might be helpful. And that could be a technical assistance, could be anything that is based on the community's needs. Number 5, FEMA currently offers premium discounts for many CRS activities through the NFIP's current pricing approach. In in CRS participating communities, this may lead to policyholders receiving double discounts for the same CRS activities. Example, elevation of individual structure above the NFIP's minimum elevation requirements, resulting in a structure level discount through the NFIP's current pricing approach, and a CRS credit for a community-wide higher structure elevation regulation. So there are two parts to these questions. 5A, if FEMA were to provide NFIP premium discounts to individual policyholders for CRS activities through the NFIP's current pricing approach, should FEMA offer duplicate CRS discounts for the same activities that are already reflected in individual premiums? Why or why not? So this was a suggestion made by some of the stakeholders so that the CRS would provide a sound financial framework to the NFIP. And this is also recommendation made by GAO in their report that they published last year. So what this suggestion is that our current rating approach, risk rating 2.0, it considers many different variables. So why not include the activities that result in community level risk reduction directly into the rating approach? So incorporate those activities directly into the rating approach instead of giving separate CRS discounts, and then the policyholders would get reduced premiums there. And also, additionally, there would be no additional CRS discounts. They would directly get reduced premiums. And additionally, today, we give some of the activities do result in what they call double discounts or double dipping. So, for example, elevation, there is a variable called first floor height in the rating approach, or risk rating 2.0. And what that is giving credit for elevation. Higher you go, the lower the premiums. And we also give discounts, or we give points and discounts in the current CRS program for a free board, right? So if there's BFE +1 free board and there's a free board requirement, they get points and discounts. So free board is nothing but elevation. So this is asking if we should be offering these duplicate CRS discount. Does it really support the sound financial framework of NFIP? And question 5B says, assuming no to A, meaning assuming we no longer offered double discounts or double dipping, would communities be incentivized to adopt measures in excess of FEMA's minimum floodplain management standards for community-wide activities that reduce future flood risk? Example, stormwater management regulations or enhanced future land use planning, if FEMA were to only offer CRS discounts for those community-wide activities that reduce future flood risk. So what this is asking, 5A, it's proposing, the suggestion is that the activities that result in current flood risk reduction and can be incorporated into the rating engine, like we have the mitigation discounts, right, for flood openings or elevation of machinery and equipment, that is included in the pricing, and they get reduced premiums. Similar to that, all the activities that result in current flood risk, community level current flood risk reduction, they be incorporated into the rating approach. And what B is saying, only the activities that result in flood risk reduction, future flood risk reduction, or cannot be incorporated into the rating approach should be given CRS discounts. So those that can be incorporated into the rating engine, the current activities that reduce current flood risk reduction, they would get lower premiums, and only for the activities that cannot be incorporated into the rating approach, like the future conditions, the communities would get discounts for that. So it's asking if FEMA were only offer CRS discounts for those community-wide activities that reduce flood risk, would communities be incentivized to adopt measures in excess of FEMA's minimum floodplain management standards? Now let's go to question 6. Are there any additional community level activities that are not currently included in the CRS program that measurably reduce flood risk to properties? Please describe, and if available, provide national level data that demonstrate how the activities measurably reduce current and or future flood risk reduction to property. I think this is pretty clear, the question. This next question, question 7. Would a participating CRS community be willing to exchange CRS insurance policyholder premium discounts, example, all, some, or none in a community for other comparable community level benefits such as enhanced technical assistance for the local CRS program or capacity building grants? For example, if the aggregate amount of CRS discounts offered to individuals in the community totals $100,000, would the community be interested in redistributing the total individual CRS discounts, example, $100,000, among the community and the individual policyholders, example, $50,000 to the community for enhanced technical assistance grants and $50,000 to be distributed to individual policyholders in the form of CRS discounts? By redistributing the CRS insurance policyholder premium discount benefits from the policyholders to the community, there would be a potential for both wider risk reduction and larger financial benefits to the community. Would such an approach make non-participating CRS communities more inclined to join the CRS program? So this was a suggestion made by some of the stakeholders. They said, especially some of the smaller communities, especially, they feel that this program is resource intensive and burdensome, and the communities don't get any benefit. All the benefits go to policyholders. So some of the stakeholders suggested that maybe portion of the discounts go to the community, which can be used for technical assistance, capacity building grants, funding a CRS coordinator, and so forth. And again, this is a suggestion made by the stakeholders. We do not have any position on any of the suggestions. So far, we have not made any decision on any of these alternatives. We're just requesting feedback at this point. Question 8, besides individual flood insurance financial premium discounts, what other benefits would best incentivize communities to maintain participation in or to join the program? So this is also stemming from GAO recommendation 2, which says that FEMA should find other ways of incentivizing communities to implement activities that do not result in flood damage reduction, which is activities could be in the public information category or flood warning and response. So GAO has recommended that we should find other ways of incentivizing communities to implement those activities that don't directly result in flood damage reduction, but results in comprehensive floodplain management. So question 9, the current program, CRS program, credits 19 activities and 90 plus elements recognized by the CRS program and identified in the CRS coordinator's manual, along with the credit points assigned to each activity. An activity is a floodplain management activity for which CRS credit has been established, example, mapping and regulations, higher regulatory standards, and so forth. Elements are discrete parts of an activity that, if implemented, result in CRS credit points under that activity, example, community-wide prohibition of outdoor storage in the SFHA, which is an element of the activity of higher regulatory standards. What are some advantages and or disadvantages of reducing the number of activities and elements and streamlining CRS reporting requirements? So this was a suggestion made by some stakeholders, as the current manual is several hundred pages. It's viewed as complex. So suggestion was that FEMA should streamline the CRS activities and maybe focus on activities that result in high flood risk reduction. Question 10, what are the advantages and or disadvantages of communities working with communities to implement CRS under a regional approach? For example, a regional approach may include a regional watershed or planning commission that implements a CRS program for multiple communities, or a shared CRS coordinator position among several communities. So there's two parts here. If it's a shared resource, like a shared CRS coordinator position, then each community would come in at their current classification. But then there's the other part of it is multi-jurisdiction participation. So if communities came together, like a regional approach or a watershed commission, then some of the smaller communities who may not be able to join may be able to participate. So if that happened in a multi-jurisdiction participation, all the communities would come in at the same class. So if there are 5 communities, some communities are class 6, some communities are class 8, then they would all come in at the lowest class. So that's the multi-jurisdiction participation approach that was suggested. And the last question, what else should FEMA consider for potential improvements to the CRS program, and how can FEMA better engage with stakeholders to effectively implement the CRS program? With that, I'm gonna, Jesse, are there any clarification questions on these?
Currently, there are none.
Currently, there are none. Okay. Okay, so today we are looking for feedback only on these questions, or these are the suggested alternatives that have been suggested by our stakeholders. And we have from our previous 2021 RFI feedback. So with that, we will now move into the verbal comment portion of our meeting. Tribal participants and members of the public who during registration indicated an interest in providing verbal comments will be given the opportunity to speak. First, if you register to speak and due to time limitations, we do not get to you during today's meeting, we encourage you to provide written comments through regulations.gov, and that's open. Comment period is open through September 9th. We'll begin the verbal commenting portion of the meeting with tribal participants, and then we'll call on those who have registered online to provide verbal comments following the date of their submission in chronological order of registration, and we'll be using a timer to stay on track. Moderators will call 2 names. The first will be the current speaker, and the second will be the speaker on deck. When your name is called, please use the raise hand function to indicate your readiness to speak. A moderator will then invite you to unmute your microphone. Once your mic is unmuted and you're ready to speak, please state your name for the record and that you're ready to speak. Each speaker will have approximately 3 minutes to speak, and the timer will begin after you've been acknowledged by the moderator to speak. The moderator will say, "We hear you," your first name. Your time for verbal comments begins now. If time allows, after all tribal speakers and registered speakers finish providing verbal comments, we'll invite other meeting participants who have not spoken yet to indicate an interest in speaking by clicking raise hand and submitting a note to moderators in the Q&A window. Unfortunately, as was stated on the registration page for this event, anyone who has dialed in by phone will be unable to provide spoken comments at this time. If you've dialed into this meeting by phone and wish to provide a comment, please submit a written comment online at www.regulations.gov and insert docket ID FEMA-2024-0022-0001 in the search function. With that, now I will invite Jay LaPlante and Mary Jo Mullen to facilitate the verbal comment portion of this meeting. Over to you, Jay.
Thanks, Shilpa. Okay, as this public meeting, we've had, this is our 3rd public meeting. This one was advertised as a tribal focused meeting. So we're going to start the comment period with opening it up to 2 tribal nations who have joined the discussion today. You do not have to have registered for to speak, and then once we get past tribal nations who have spoken or shared, then we will go to those folks who registered. So the way that I'd like to do this, to share your comments, we're going to first open it up to tribal elders and tribal leaders. After that, we'll open it up to anybody who's designated by the tribe to speak on behalf of the tribe. So sort of that delegated authority from your tribal leaders to speak on behalf of the tribe. And then we'll open it up to any tribal associations or organizations who would like to share comments today. So you have been given a number of questions. Again, you can go to the Federal Register to review those questions. Since they are no longer on the screen, if you go to the Federal Register, all those questions are there. We'd like to definitely get your feedback on all of those. This is the NFIP program. You may have comments about NFIP, but we're looking for comments specifically on the CRS program so that it can be redesigned. But we will take any comments that you have. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this up now to, and we're just gonna if you have a comment, please let us know. I think I should ask, is it Jesse? How do they let us know that they want to speak? Do they raise their hand?
Yes, raise hand function, please.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna open this up to tribal elders or tribal leaders. Anyone who is a tribal leader or a tribal elder who would like to speak. Please raise your hand. Just let me know if anybody comes on. And when you do come on to speak, please introduce yourself with your name, the tribe you represent, and your role in the community. That'd be great. So any tribal leaders or tribal elders? All right. You're welcome to come on later if you'd like. I'm going to open this up a little more than tribal leaders, tribal elders, or those tribal designees. Anyone who is given the authority to speak on behalf of your tribe by your tribal leaders, you're welcome to share your comments. All right. All right, then I'm going to open it up a little further then. So we have tribal elders, tribal leaders, any tribal designees, or tribal associations and organizations. Anyone representing a tribal association or organization who would like to share your comments. Okay, if you those tribal elders, tribal leaders, designees, tribal associations, anyone speaking on behalf of tribal nations, you'd like to speak, we're gonna have a little more time after the registered speakers, so you will have time to make comments. So if no one has any comments at the moment, I'm gonna go ahead and turn this back over to Shilpa, or is it to Mary Jo?
Thank you, Jay. We have a list of those who registered to provide comments. As this is a tribal focused session, I wanted to ask and invite Floyd Velasquez. If he would like to speak first. He is registered associated with a tribal nation, so I wanted to see if he's on. Floyd, if you are here, please raise your hand.
He does not appear to be on.
Okay. Then we will start at the top of our list. First up to speak will be Elena Davino. And then second to speak will be Camille Primus. Elena, if you can please raise your hand and we will invite you to come off mute. Okay. I can see you, Elena. Can you come off mute and
she said no questions on her end, so we can go to the next.
okay, thank you so much. So Camille Primus will be next, if you can raise your hand. And then coming after Camille will be Daniel Negron.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Please give your comment. I will start the timer with 3 minutes.
Awesome. Thank you. So yes, I'm Camille Primus. I'm a senior planner here at Chesapeake Emergency Management located in Virginia. And after speaking with my team here, our CRS coordinator who wasn't available to join the call, and our director in development permits, who's also our floodplain manager, there were mainly kind of three things that we wanted to voice as far as what they've experienced and their feedback. The first one was, you've kind of touched on it as far as the CRS program it's complicated, it's complex, and at times it can be rigid. So one recommendation we had was kind of loosening the aspect of a one-size-fits-all approach. There are some activities where it's kind of an all or nothing situation regarding getting credit. An example I like to use for us is there's an activity regarding inspecting ditches and, doing that once a year. But in Chesapeake, we have nearly 3,000 miles of ditches. So realistically, it's not very feasible for us to, put that kind of manpower and resources to inspect those ditches. So if there was, something like that, where it's a bit of like a tiered system or percentage wise, where we're able to maximize, things in that regard, that would be great, because that's something that we would definitely, put more resources towards if we know that we can at least get some type of credit for it. The second aspect was the, ISO staffing in particular. I'm still relatively new to this organization, and so they've worked with the ISO staff, the reps for Virginia, for a lot longer than I have. And from their experience, it seems like they're very hard to communicate with, very hard to hear back from, and that there's a lot of turnaround. So, and it doesn't seem like there's much communication in that regard with the locality, as far as, who their new CRS specialist is that we'll be interfacing with. So I don't know what that looks like as far as if it's, changing contractor or increasing staffing in that regard, or looking at a more regional level instead of a state level. But that's something we've been struggling with. And then the last thing I want to say is weighted activities. Some activities are weighted a lot more than others, which makes it hard for us to be able to pursue some activities that, we're putting a lot of effort into, but we're getting very few credits on. But I see the timer's up, so that's all I have.
Thank you very much for your comment. If you want to provide anything further, you can always provide additional written comment too. We may not have the next few people, but we'll just check and see. Next up would be Danielle Negron, followed by Lauren Brinkman. If Daniel's on, can you please raise your hand? Okay. It appears he's not on, so we'll move on to Lauren Brinkman. Can you please raise your hand if you're here? Who will be followed then by Will Wigand. Okay, also not hearing or seeing Lauren. Is Will Wigand available on the phone or on the Zoom? Also not seeing him. Which means that next up would be Tammy Snyder, followed by Richard Buckeye. Is Tammy Snyder on? Can you please raise your hand? Not seeing Tammy. So next up is Richard Buckeye, which would be followed by Jack Blackham. Richard, can you raise your hand, please? I think he may have dropped. Oh, there we go.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Please go ahead and give your comment.
Yeah, my name is Rick Buckeye. I'm the CRS coordinator here with the City of Oakland Park in Broward County, Florida. I guess my question is, over the last so many years, the City of Oakland Park has invested quite a bit of money in capital improvements, which a lot of it was drainage improvements. And it's in the millions. And we were just wondering if there's any way in the future that something like what we've done to now could be included for CRS points and possibly, the maintenance category, or not necessarily a higher regulatory type of situation, but maybe something more in line with, trying to think here now, out of the activities, that we've done to get to a class 6. We just wonder if we could have that under consideration in the future. That's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Moving to the next set of commenters, also may not be present, so I'll kind of go through these names quickly just to make sure they're not on. First would be Jack Blackham, followed by William Harris. If Jack is on, can you please raise your hand? Seeing none. William Harris, are you present? Can you raise your hand? Who would be followed by Marcy Hostetler? Not seeing Mr. Harris. Is Marcy Hostetler available on the call? If so, raise your hand. And next up would be Jennifer Aldridge. Okay, not seeing Marcy Hostetler. Is Jennifer Aldridge available on the Zoom? Moving on to Nicholas Bernard. Will be next up. You can raise your hand if you're present, followed by Christina Rhines.
Hey there, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Awesome. Yep, I'm Nick Bernard. I am the floodplain manager for the District of Columbia. Just want to make a few comments. The first is you may want to consider combining the National Flood Insurance Program CAP SASE grant and the CRS. There's a lot of overlap I see as a state administering this. Basically we have to fill out a spreadsheet called the tiered state assessment framework. And it's very similar to the CRS. It's like, how many engagements of events are you going to do and things like that. And so I could see a way of combining those. So you're kind of reducing the duplication of work. So essentially it'd be, you get more money in the CAP program and you get more savings on the CRS if you do, these XYZ activities. Another just general comment is the idea of reducing the paperwork burden on communities. I feel like the decision that I have to make a lot of the time is whether to spend staff time proving that we've done these requirements, or should I just spend the staff time actually doing things that reduce flood risk. And I think that sort of gets to one of your questions about how to reduce complexity. And when I look at some of the questions you're asking for feedback on, it makes me feel like you're not actually streamlining or reducing the complexity. And you may want to really scale back and focus on the really important things that actually drive risk reduction. That way you can be compliant with the intent of the program and what GAO has said. So you might want to consider some things like, really what are the things that move the needle? So if things that reduce risk to the community and reduce risk to the federal government are having structures all be flood proof to the proper elevation, maybe that's a thing. Maybe you get, what percent of your structures are 1 foot above the base flood elevation, 2 foot above, and you get points based on that. You can also include structures as being protected if they are protected from levees. So that way you're incentivizing communities to build levees or implement higher standards, or in some cases, help flood-proof homes or move them out of the floodplain altogether. And then you could imagine a similar sort of like general rubric on outreach, what percentage of homes have received communications about flood risk, or you could get more specific about the types of outreach that you want. So those are a couple of suggestions, and then two specific things that I like to see. One might be a DC specific, but there is a activity that if you have a conservation easement or something like that over parkland, you get credit. In the District of Columbia, we have a lot of parkland, but it's federal government owned, and we can't take credit for that because it's not district parkland. But I think we can all agree that if it's federal parkland, it's pretty good for staying parkland. So we'd love to see that specific change. And then lastly, whenever you do redesign this, you really should be able to provide a spreadsheet for communities where we can project and sort of try out, what would happen, how many points would we get if we do this activity or do that activity. We've started trying to develop this now, and it seems very doable, especially if the requirements were a little bit more clear. And then you can do some scenario planning, and communities can decide which activities to go after that will get the most bang for the buck. So that's it for me. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next up is Christina Rhymes, who will be followed by Priscilla Vargas. Christina, are you on? Can you raise your hand for us? Not seeing Christina. So our last registered speaker is Priscilla Vargas. Mayor Vargas, can you raise your hand for us? Looks like she may have dropped as well. So that does conclude the registered speakers, but we do have more time for more members of the public to provide verbal comments. If you'd like to speak, you can please send a message to the meeting hosts in the Q&A feature and click the raise hand Zoom button. I see Samantha Estabrook raising her hand. Excellent. Please, Samantha, go ahead.
Yes, are you able to hear me?
We can hear you. Go right ahead.
Perfect. I'd just like to thank you for the meeting today. My name is Samantha Estabrook with OpeWorks, and OpeWorks has submitted a written comment that points to a recent report responding to all 7 comment summaries as well as the 11 post questions. Additionally, you can find a report response to GAO 23-105-977, which in part prompted the redesign effort through the Executive Action Recommendations 1 and 2. Both reports were written by a certified floodplain manager and planner who's a former Class 6 CRS coordinator for a community of about 50,000 people and was a primary contributor to the 2024 state-based credit sheets that are used by CRS ISO specialists. The report explains some of the misconceptions about the program found in the comment summaries, as well as echoes constituent concerns and provides recommendations for helping to remedy them. For example, the report includes a table of all elements that are creditable for future conditions and climate impact analysis. Additionally, it provides an explanation of why regional approaches to the CRS are effective at implementing activities and pursuing mitigation, but ineffective at administration of the program. It underscores that the NFIP and CRS program are intentionally embedded within our local communities to ensure that there's political will and consistent financial support for resources. In responding to the questions in responding to the post questions, the report includes why FEMA should not auto-enroll communities nor apply any additional surcharges. Additionally, the report offers technical assistance ideas such as repetitive loss analysis and online management tools that would reduce the burden on local communities. Additionally, it discusses the misconceptions around double discounts and offers critical points where FEMA can improve communication with communities in order to increase participation. It is our hope that the findings of this effort indicate that not much redesign of the CRS program is necessary. Rather, this effort highlights refinements that FEMA and its private sector partners can make to improve community implementation and access, including access to our tribal nations. As the community rating system approaches 30 years in practice, it has laid the foundation for what is possible when a federal program elevates innovative local solutions so that they can be shared nationally. Please refer to the report in full for the full responses to questions and the comment summaries. You can access it via the comment sections on regulations.gov that folks in the community that are facilitating the meeting have posted. And I thank you for the opportunity to provide comments today.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next up, I see Frank Bruton with your hand up.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I don't know if can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go right ahead.
Okay, very good. I just want to try and get a better understanding of the changes that you're looking to propose. Are they more than just those 11 questions that were provided? And the strong basis on that is the communities that I represent range from a class ratings from 7 all the way down to a class 3. We are along the coast of New Jersey, which is highly affected by the flooding and flood mitigation issues. So they took the CRS, the communities here took the CRS program very seriously. And we just want them to understand that we hope that everyone is very conscious not to overhaul or modify the program too much. The communities that I represent have developed policies, procedures, regulations, ordinances based on the CF program that have been implemented for upwards of 20 years and would have an extremely difficult time adjusting to a renovated program, especially just in the 18 months that was mentioned before. So they would like to make sure that this program is not overhauled in a drastic measure.
Thank you very much for your comment. Does anyone else wish to raise their hand and provide additional comment? Okay, final call for any additional verbal comments from participants. If there's no other comments, I'll turn it back to Shilpa.
Thank you, Mary Jo. So on behalf of FEMA Tribal Affairs and all of FEMA, we'd like to thank you again for joining today's public meeting and for those who provided their verbal comments. We need input from the whole community as we review this CRS program and position it for the future. If you have not already done so, please remember to submit written comments via the federal rulemaking portal at www.regulations.gov using Docket ID FEMA-2024-0022-0001 up until September 9th, 2024. The transcript of this public meeting will be available on FEMA.gov and the Federal Register at a later date. In the meantime, please send any questions to FEMA-CRS-redesign@fema.dhs.gov. Additionally, we'd like you to note that we do plan on hosting 2 tribal consultations in October. So please be on the lookout for more information on these during the upcoming weeks. With that, thank you again. And this concludes today's public meeting, which is the last and the final meeting for FEMA CRS Design. Thank you.